Welcome to Women Winning Divorce. I am your host, Heather Quick. I am an attorney, entrepreneur, author, and founder of Florida Women's Law Group, the only divorce firm for women by women. I love thinking big, thinking outside the box, creating creative solutions for women, and empowering women to win in all aspects of their life. Our approach at Florida Women's Law Group is to provide women with a strategy to not only achieve their objectives, but win at life. I believe that what may show up as adversity is simply an opportunity to change and improve your life. In each episode, I sit down with innovative professionals and leaders who are focused on how you can be your best self before, during, and after divorce. In these conversations, we are looking at how women can win at life. I have the unique opportunity to meet women when they are at a transition period of life. But that is only the beginning to becoming your best self and winning at life on your terms. With our guests, we enjoy the opportunity to explore ways all women can win and enhance their life, no matter where they are in their journey. Because divorce is just a point in life, not the end and not what defines you, rather a catalyst for your growth.
Welcome to today's episode of Women Winning Divorce. I'm Heather Quick, owner and attorney at Florida Women's Law Group. Today, I am joined by our podcast producer, Olivia Dodd. She is also our marketing assistant here at Florida Women's Law Group. Welcome to the show, Olivia.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to once again be on this side of the podcast recording today.
Well, we are so happy to have you, and I know our listeners are, and that's why they brought you back to ask some more insightful questions.
Of course.
So today we will be discussing why sometimes it's now or never, and why there can be such a sense of urgency in filing for divorce. So Olivia, take it away.
All right. And I know that we've talked about this before, but I think that reiteration is always helpful. Would you please give our listeners a simple timeline of the divorce process, particularly if you guys, are kind of in agreement and it's pretty uncontested?
I would say in your average uncontested case, and even if you say it's uncontested, I am going to presume we're going to mediation, and therefore it's probably going to be about 9 months. If you really have hammered everything out and you don't need mediation, which does occur, it certainly does. I know we talk a lot about the extremes. But there's just so many variations, and it varies so much depending on the issues and, of course, the folks involved. But it can be within 6 months, maybe even sometimes sooner. Those are in really rare cases. But I think if you are thinking anywhere from 6 months to 18 months is average.
And so that is a perfect timeline kind of range for your uncontested divorce. How does the timeline change if your relationship is high conflict and you guys are really fighting about it? Obviously, that would make it longer, but why does it make it longer?
So so the more conflict, the more disagreement on, say, simple things like discovery, bank statements, documents, usually. That just takes more time. And anytime we have to go in front of a judge to resolve an issue, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I mean, that's why they're here, and you guys are getting divorced. So not everything always goes smoothly. And sometimes, we do have to go in front of a judge. That makes things take longer. It's not just the judge's schedule. It's your attorney's schedule and his attorney's schedule. So in and of itself, the more we're having to go to court to try to resolve issues and or get temporary things resolved, it just adds time to the clock.
And I think that you said earlier something about an extreme, and we like to talk about extremes and differences here on our show. What is the longest divorce that you personally have processed, or maybe in our firm? I'll count that as well.
So, and this would be probably the answer for any attorney. I wasn't the only attorney, but okay. I was the one, and it still took, so from the date of filing to the trial,
okay,
was 4 years.
Oh my goodness.
And I think after that 4 years, the final resolution was between 2 and 3 years after that, meaning a court order on the issues. It was extreme. It was
That
extreme.
that is extreme in every meaning of the word. That sounds extreme. So from going to trial to when it's all said and done, is there kind of a timeline in there, or what is that? What does that look
That
like?
should not be that long. That
Okay.
was absolutely the fault of the judge, 100%. And I can say that with certainty that in there, the judges do have responsibility to
Of
make
course.
decisions and finalize it. So I would say an average from when you showed up at trial to having the papers should probably it might be like 3 months.
Okay.
2 to 3 months. It takes surprisingly a long time, but when the judge sits through a day or two of testimony, most judges take notes. They are then want to go back and review those notes to make a thoughtful decision because and I just to explain, I don't take one side or the other. There are some judges who can make decisions very quickly. There are others who cannot, who don't, right? They have a different process. But keep in mind for you as the client, I mean, you've been living it, you've been preparing for trial, your attorney. We know every inside out of this case. We are so prepared. We could make a decision on the spot. But now we've taken a fire hose of information into one person who, as skilled, experienced, and smart as they are as judges, they want to make a good decision. And so you've given this fire hose of information, and now they want to go back and process it. They don't want to miss anything. They don't want to be appealed, overturned on that
Right.
decision. So they're going to take a little bit of time. They really shouldn't take more than a week or two to make a decision. And then they make a decision, and now it has to be reduced to an order, which is probably going to be anywhere from 22 to 30 pages long. So that takes time to draft and get finalized.
That is really interesting. That is an element in the process that I didn't really know about. And I'm sure our listeners will be excited to hear about that kind of hidden element in the process as well. And speaking of the process, are there things that we as clients, I will play the client here. Are there things that we as clients can do to make the process faster, or are there things to avoid? Like, what do I really need to have prepared to make it kind of go along as you would want it to?
So really, financials, and that's not to say it has to be that longer if you don't, but the bank statements, the understanding that can really cause a lot of delay. When your attorney says they need something, it means we need it. Go find it. Go to the bank and get it. Like we want it and go today. Like get it. If we have to subpoena it, that adds a month minimum to the process. Like that's one more month down the drain. Like those 30-day periods just they go by so quickly. So, be prepared there and really be very honest with your attorney on all the issues. And when we ask you, what do you want? Where do you see yourself in 3 years? Really spend some time on that. This is a great reason why we have that journal, our guided journal for our clients. Like, it's really important to think about your future. I know you're going through a difficult time, but the more information you can give us as your attorneys, the better we can really plan a strategy for your future and not just, what should we do today kind of thing, right? We really have a plan. And when we have a plan, we can execute on it. And then it's not, oh, turn here, go this way, right? Oh, I want this. And so then all of a sudden there's a direction and months go by, really months go by so quickly if we're not staying on track with a plan. And sometimes like, hey, the plan things happen and it's got to be different, but really being honest and spending that time to think about where you want to be in the future is going to make you a better client, and your attorney will be more informed and you're going to have a better result.
Of course. And I think that I think that that is really important to be organized and to, just be ready. If you're going to be ready, be ready. And so what about you? You obviously are running this beautiful law firm that I have the privilege of working in. And we have several attorneys. What about as an attorney? Like, what can you do to help your clients navigate this efficiently? Talking about making the most out of your investment and quickly. Like, how do you advise your attorneys to do that?
Well, we start out with helping our clients get clear on their goals and objectives. And that is a process, but always staying true to that. Because if we are problem solvers, attorneys by our very nature, I mean, that's what we spend all those years in law school learning how to solve problems. So as an example, if a client were to come in and, we're going, and then they're like, you know what, I want to depose this person. I want to take the deposition of the secretary at work. I want to take the deposition of, all these random people.
Mm-hmm.
And we as attorneys are going to be like, okay, maybe a less experienced would say, okay, sure, let's do it. Okay, well, that takes up a lot of time. And then just in getting the scheduling, doing all that, a lot of attorney's fees. But we didn't ask the crucial question, which, why? What's the objective, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's go back to our case strategy. This is what you want to achieve. I don't see how any of these are going to get us there. Or I think 2 out of 5, these 5 are a good way to get us more information to the end result. So that's a way as attorneys and for our clients, when they've heard things like, and I hope our attorneys wouldn't say it in this way, but sometimes we might, like, it doesn't matter. And of course, everything matters, but like the judge is not going to consider it. And this line, this like, and I think if we think about being hurt, and obviously a lot of times marriages end that way, and you do things, we talked about it in our other episode, that like are like that pound of flesh that are going to make you think it's going to make you feel good.
Right.
But it's going to take us sideways. And even if we get all this information out, it's really not going to help us reach the end objective and strategy. Then we've really gotten you off course. And now we're letting the tail wag the dog. And it shouldn't be that way, right? You tell me what you want, I'll tell you how to get there. But if you're going to tell me how to get there, then I'm probably not going to be your attorney, because you don't know how to get there. We know how to get there. We're going to direct you. And if you don't like that way, then it's not a good fit, right? You really should not be with an attorney whose advice you're not going to follow or you don't trust.
Exactly.
If you don't agree with them, it's like, listen, you need to find somebody who is maybe more aligned with you. But I know how to get you what you said you wanted. But if you're not willing to go that way, then, we're going to end up going a very long and expensive road and probably still not getting that end result. And I have found that clients generally are not happy. So therefore, we will help you find a new attorney.
You said before on a previous podcast that you're a very expensive friend to have. And I think that is similar, like, in that situation where we're an expensive friend to have.
But you're going to be mad at us later too. It's not even going to be a good relationship, because you're going to get so upset that you kept paying to talk to us. And it's like, no, we're talking about legal strategy, right?
Right.
We shouldn't just be talking with conversations where no action is taken.
Exactly.
That's how our attorneys can make sure, hey, when we come up with a plan, action follows. And that way we can get you through that process more effectively.
And all of those are very intentional things. Do you ever see clients do things unintentionally that kind of slow down their process?
Yes. It can be intentional, it can be unintentional. And sometimes there's, it might be in the client's best interest to not rush. And as I've talked about the timing, things take what they take. And unfortunately, it seems like when you really are trying to get what you feel are emergencies or just things that need to be expedited, I feel like sometimes it's so difficult in this clog of a legal system to do that, right? Just the way some people feel in the clog of the medical healthcare system. Like
Of
you just
course.
feel like I really want to shortcut to get this one issue resolved. And so sometimes that's frustrating. So it's, an example of when, you have clients many times in recovery
Mhm.
and working through some issues. Well, time is their friend, right? The longer they can have to get things in order and together, particularly when children are involved, the better. So we might not worry about the clogs in the legal system there because we're letting time play out, and it will give the courts, if you've had, say, sobriety for a year, that's really better for a judge than only 6 months. And they may not give you as much of the benefit of the doubt, much faith, or rely on your experts. So there can be times when let the system play out and don't try to rush it, which I have not successfully rushed it. I will tell you, you try to think of ends arounds and try to get things done faster. It's not meant for that. And I don't think the system wants to move any faster. It's too many constraints. So those can be ways. Well, and then unintentionally, I'm sure somewhere subconsciously they know what they're doing, but they're not responsive. They're unable to get things together. And you just got to be really careful with that. And we really try to advise clients and all our listeners, just be careful. Like, we've talked about it before. This is just going to be a snapshot of your life, but like everything's under the microscope, and
Mhm.
so easy to take things out of context. And whether you want to be in the divorce process or not, if you're in it, you're in it, and you're going to have obligations, and you really need to, be honest with your attorney. You may be having a hard time emotionally, and let your attorney help get you some of the resources that you may need, so that you don't feel that you were rushed through
Right.
the legal system.
Of course. So we've talked about kind of our side of the process. What about the opposing party? What are some ways that player piece can delay the divorce process?
Oh, well, that can buy into all our conspiracy theories, right? But they can have their attorneys consistently unavailable. I remember so long ago, gosh, it was a long time ago, like back. I mean, I always had electronic, but the judges had like paper, pencil, calendars. And they weren't the courts weren't on the computer. Like, it was so old,
Right.
which I'm not that old, but I must have been very, very young. But watching that, and the judges would give dates, and the attorney would be like, no, I'm not there. Or our side would call up and they're like, only the attorney does his schedule, so he's not here today, and just delay. And then finally, some of the best judges assistants would be like, I gave you 3 dates. You don't pick one, I pick it for you. And a lot of that old school nonsense is gone. And because it's clearly in their client's interest to delay something. So, they can do that by not responding. And that's going to give you higher attorney fees, because we have a recourse,
Of
but
course.
that's going to the judge. And we just have to keep persistent, and really be relentless in that. And eventually, I would say it all evens out. And if you're really able to stay the course, that bad behavior will become apparent, and you will prevail, but you can't give up.
Can't give up. I love the judge with the paper and pencil calendar. I love that example.
And the attorneys at that time. I there probably are still attorneys out there, but I don't have to worry, because they wouldn't be listening to a podcast, right?
That is true. You're ahead of the curve. Yes,
but yes, it truly was a thing. It was a thing.
I'm sure. Now is a perfect time for us to take a break, and we'll be right back. Listeners, please leave us a 5-star review and let us know which episode has been most helpful to you so far. We'll be right back.
We are back from our break, and again today I'm joined by Olivia to discuss why urgency can be beneficial in the divorce process. Now, in the last segment, we talked about the divorce timeline, and now we're going to be discussing what the exact process from start to finish looks like. Take it away, Olivia.
Oh, thank you. Something we say in our office very often to our clients is, hey, just by calling us, you're really taking the hardest and biggest step. So I want to talk about specifically with us, what the process looks like. I get to work in the marketing area of the office. So I very often get to kind of see that first point of contact that is made with us. And for our listeners, will you please walk through us the intake process and like what are we asking you in that call, and how long does an intake call typically take?
Um, okay, so that sounds really, medical, right? It's just a call.
Right.
And so it's just your initial call to our office. So let's start there. It is nothing surgical or anything like that. It's really a call that is probably one of the hardest things you've ever done. And you're reaching out, and most callers say, I want to talk to somebody about a divorce. Because that's primarily what we do. There's a lot, once you've been in the system, you'll know I need to modify or all the things after divorce that you need to do. But they're saying, I need to talk to somebody. So then you are going to talk to our, part of our intake team, which is essentially an initial call. And they're going to ask you a lot of questions. And the reasons for those questions are to determine if we think you can help you. We aren't the individuals on those initial calls aren't attorneys. And so in order to determine if you have a problem that we can help you with, a legal issue that we can help you with, we've got to schedule the consult. But like in that initial call, they know if you live in Georgia and you've never lived in Florida, we can't help you, but we're going to try to get you a referral.
Great.
If you live in Miami, we're not in Miami right now. We will be one day, but for now we're not. So we're not sure we can help you. We may need to get you a referral. So like that initial call is going to be those things. If you're calling for a criminal matter, we're not going to be able to help you. We don't do criminal law. So that initial call is important. And we actually have, certain ethical obligations to make sure there's no conflicts with any prior clients. And we're going to get some information that you would expect we're going to want to know about your particular situation. And that will allow that team to schedule you with an attorney, because that's the next step for us to determine if you have a problem we can solve, number one, and then do you want our help? So that's where we got to get to the consultation. That can only be done with the attorney and our client specialist.
So if you are calling an attorney's office or our office and you have already filed, or maybe your husband has already filed, how does that change? What does that change in the conversation?
That's a great question, Olivia, because many times not many times, always, it always requires our office to check the court file. And we're going to do that when you're on the phone. And so we're going to ask you questions like, okay, now I really need to know how to spell the last name. I need the specifics because I'm going to search the court file, or if you have the case number, and they're going to ask you what county is it in. So they're going to ask you a lot of specific questions. And the reason is we need to know if a date is already on the calendar, because one thing that we do want to help all women who call our office in a family law and divorce situation. We really do. But there could be a circumstance where you call us on a Monday and you have a hearing on Friday, and it would be impossible for us to represent you in the manner with which we represent people. We do not just go wing it. We don't wing it. Your case is too important for us. So those kind of questions would be important. And our individuals, the ladies on the phone taking that call, they aren't really going to have authority to schedule a consultation without getting approval, because even if an attorney would be available the same week, we would never have time to prepare, because that takes days in understanding all the issues. So that would be a case where we would say those deadlines are too close. We can't help you. Now, it may be that you have deadlines in 2 or 3 weeks, Okay, not ideal, but more likely than not, we would be able to help you. I mean, there have been cases before when all the attorneys were in trial in a month and we would have had to say no because we wouldn't have wanted you to come in. Of course, you'd want to hire us, right? You'd want us, then we say, oh, nobody's available. We really, that is something we strive to never do. We don't want to do that. But we're going to tell you, and what you might hear in that initial call is, all right, you've got court in 3 weeks. We can set you, but only if you'll come our next two available, either tomorrow or the next day. If you wait any longer than that, there won't be enough time. And that is coming from, they're going to our case manager and our administration, even before we've met with the person, right? We haven't even had the consult, but we're already saying, all right, you got to come in and then you got to make a decision because it's going to take us that time to make sure we are fully prepared for your case. So those are the kind of things that, I don't think people process as much, right? That what is going to take you 2 weeks. The other day, I will tell you, so, when you take a case over from another attorney, it's not just that easy. Just for our listeners, you have an attorney, that's great. We can send something to the court. It took the judge like 3 months to sign the order, putting the other person in charge. Okay, maybe I'm exaggerating, but I know it took 2 months. Normally, it should only take a couple days. But until the court has said, hey, your other attorney can go, and this one's on, like you're really stuck, and it doesn't make logical sense. I know, to our listeners, like, I know it doesn't, because they're like, what? I told this one I don't want them working for me. I hired this one, and now we're just sitting in limbo. So things like that are really outside our control. And then what about the file with another attorney? What about all the information we need to proceed on your behalf? It just takes time. It is not this. I wish it was the snap of the fingers. And then, our attorneys, they have full calendars. They're in court. They're in mediations. They're meeting with clients. They're not sitting around waiting for somebody to call to come in and fill their calendar. So it's a balance of all of that really comes into play on, you think, oh, I'm gonna have court for 2 more weeks. I don't need to do anything this week. Oh my goodness. Oh, you do, and if you have a trial, I mean, it's just practically impossible, because we talked about earlier, the subpoenas. So if I have to issue a subpoena for a witness or for documents, they get like a month. It just takes time. And you have to have those things. You don't just go into trial and he said, she said, not if you want to win.
And of course we want to win.
Yeah, of course we do. We want to win for you.
And I think that's all the more reason, do it. I think that women think about it a lot. And the process may not be as fast as you think. So we know that step 1 is that initial call with us. And that, may look different for different firms, but for us, that is step 1. And you mentioned earlier that step 2 is a consultation. So what exactly is the difference? Like, what are you guys doing in the consultation, and why would you want, I think you answered it mostly in your last answer, but why would you want to complete that quickly?
Well, if you've got things on the calendar, if you have legal deadlines that if you don't respond, you may get ruled against,
right?
Which is the default. So typically, if our office is saying we could potentially take your case, but only if you come in this week, there's a lot behind that. And the first thing is, it has to be a good fit, right? You're calling needing help, but frankly, maybe you're not the best client for our firm, and maybe we're not the best attorney for you. It all can't, like, we're not for everybody. It's so, like, I think we're more concerned about your time, because we know what it takes. We know what it takes. So we're like, get in here, because this might not be your cup of tea. You may not be our cup of tea, right? Like, it just might not be. So let's get in here and determine, remember what I said in the consult, if you have a problem that we can solve, and 2, if you want us to help you, and if we want to help you, right? It goes both ways. Just because you want to hire us doesn't mean that we will take your case. It's just not, it doesn't work like that. So that's why that consultation is so important.
And so in that consultation, the attorney is going to have a determination of, like you just said this, of if we can help you and if we are going to be your representation. Is there any benefit to retaining us immediately, or why would it greatly benefit for you to say, yes, this is who I want to represent me, and to make that decision that day?
Well, again, it's really all about what are your goals? What is already
Hmm.
happening in the system that's beyond your control? And if, if when you meet with the attorney, you need to have a feeling of trust that what we've told you is true and that we are going to advise you in the best way possible for you to achieve your goals. So therefore, if we're telling you something, that's why, right? I
Right.
mean, and for them to think, well, you just need more clients. I I may say we had an attorney out over the summer, and so when if we said, okay, if you hire us today, there's not an available appointment for you for 2 weeks. And if you wait 2 weeks, that will then be gone because the other folks that have come in or existing clients. So, we're mindful that, like I said, I know it's taken you a long time to make this decision and you want things done like yesterday, but it's not, we're not a drive-through fast food service. When there are emergencies and we recognize them, again, we may say we either do have the capacity or not. That's the fortunate thing. We have a big team and we have 6 attorneys. So it's usually not that much of an issue, but they need time to prepare. We're not going to wing it. Um, so that's kind of why we are giving you that advice, and why, unfortunately, if you wait too long, um, and then you've got deadlines, that now have crept up to 5 days versus when you first met with us, it was 2 weeks. We may not be in a position to take your case. Which again, it's not, we don't like to say no. We don't want to tell you we can't help you.
No, we want to help everyone. But so what happens if you are missing these deadlines? Like, what is that hurting your case, or how are they enforced? What does that look like?
Yes. So if you default, which means you don't answer, they can enter a default and enter the divorce, and without considering your position and what you want. And yeah, it can be quite detrimental to you because at the end of the day, not all, not always, but often there are some remedies that we can seek for you, but the court's going to clearly recognize and assume that you did not take this seriously. And you may disagree, but there's no other assumption.
Right.
And the courts, the judges, they take this process seriously. That's what they do. And, that's why, they say, well, you should have called a lawyer. You should have educated yourself. And I don't know, and I'm doubtful, Lydia, you've ever read a summons. It's not easy reading. It's not. So I understand, like, and they serve you and it gives you deadlines, but man, there's all kind of fine print, and it's almost as if, of course, you're not going to understand it. So go to somebody who can help you
Of
understand your
course.
situation. Putting your head in the sand is an option. It's an option. It's not right. It's not a great option. And later, there will be consequences to that usually are not going to be in your favor.
Of course, no answer is an answer.
Correct.
All right, that is it for our second segment. We are going to take a short break. Listeners, if this is your favorite part of the week, please subscribe and leave us a review.
We are back from our last break, and during the last segment, we discussed what the divorce process looks like, and really talked about some of the reasons the divorce process not only can take a long time, but also why those deadlines matter, and why sometimes when you call the day before a hearing, you're having trouble finding an attorney to represent you. So if you are just logging in now to listen, please go back and listen to that because it's really good stuff. But now we're going to talk about ways that you can help expedite the divorce process.
We say here, did you want to redo it? No, okay. We say here at Florida Women's Law Group, where do you see yourself in a year? And earlier in this episode, or maybe the episode we just recorded, Heather said, where do you see yourself in 3 years? And that kind of goes hand in hand with why wait. So what might be some goals that you as the client set with your attorney in terms of that 1 year vision?
So, it's going to depend on what your situation is. And we can talk about many things, but, let's talk about issues, career and children and where you're going to live and housing. So, okay, if you're either working or you're not, and you're either working somewhere you like or not, and that's going to always come into the conversation. And, where do you see yourself? And, did you start school but never finish? Or did you, always want to get a certification, always want to do something? Well, now is really the time to look at that and think about what you want to do. And the longer I've done this, Olivia, and the longer I have, just experienced things, I believe that women who work are happier and who find a purpose in something to do are going to be more fulfilled, because then you're just including something that's more than just yourself. And you're probably going to be a better person to hang around, right? Because you're going to have some more stuff to say and not so self-absorbed or obsessed with your children, which I'm obsessed with my kids too. But like, you have to recognize, they're supposed to grow up and move on, and you should have something else to talk about and also be able to set an example for them. So I really think that one of those things within those goals is we talk about financially. And, I think it's great to say, hey, just say, and that happens in extreme cases where there's plenty of money and you're not going to need any extra, but just to feel fulfilled, what would you do? And maybe that, in order to do that, doesn't take any extra education. Maybe it's just getting out there and trying. I think that's really important. And I think also, where do you want to be with your children? What's going to be important there? So we can, look at goals. So many people don't ask the right questions, and they say, well, just keep the house. Well, and your client, and this has happened to me, is that, well, I don't like this house and I don't like the school district. And maybe now they're going to private school, but after the divorce, that's going to be a challenge. So I want to move to a better school. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So let's think about that, because then that's going to really be important in the divorce process and strategy, as far as what we do with the house and the living and time sharing. So a lot of those things, and the ages of your children come into play with that as well. So those are the types of things we ask our clients to think about. And that may not all be apparent, the day you're deciding to file for divorce. And that's okay. That should evolve, because you're going to go through a process as the divorce happens. And ideally, you're going to get more clarity on those things.
Of course. And after you have established your goals with your attorney, can clients do anything to streamline the process to that end goal? Like, let's use the house example. Like, what can I bring to the table as the client to be streamlining? Like, I either want to sell the house or I want to keep it.
That's the first big decision. And you may want to keep it. It may or may not work out financially. It may not make the most long-term sense, but making decisions, especially once you're entering the legal process. And I know you've heard me talk about this before, that most individuals are not used to making so many decisions in a short period of time.
At once.
In my role as, an owner of a law firm, I make multiple decisions all the time, every day. I am very practiced. I have a lot of experience in making a lot of decisions all the time. Not always, and it's not 100% perfect, but in making a lot of decisions. Not most individuals don't make a lot of decisions every day. And there's a decision fatigue that can happen. They can get overwhelmed. So we really do try to break that down. And that's where journaling or at least writing down the questions that you have and the questions that your attorney has for you. And you know, it does take work, but gaining some self-awareness on, okay, I'm having trouble making this decision. And frankly, we as your lawyer aren't always the best person to ask. I mean, we're thinking about your legal advantage. You know, where's your trusted best friend? And that may be a parent, family member, like somebody who's really going to help you work through your emotional reactions to decisions and talking that through. Because I mean, we'll do our best to help you, but we don't know you as well as some other folks, or through a divorce coach. Divorce coaching can really help women get more practice in making decisions and walking them through that when there's multiple decisions to be made. And that is where, and I say divorce coaching over therapy, because coaching is for a set objective. And so it's just specific, more concise, more specific, with an end goal. I know therapy has case plans and overall objectives, but not as much of an end goal. Coaching is designed to end.
Right.
Therapy, we probably all need it forever. So I don't know that it's, you know what I mean? The difference. Yes. That's what I'm just trying to show. So that's how we can really help our clients get practice in making decisions. And we're absolutely empathetic, sympathetic with them that this is new.
Of course.
Isn't something they're used to. So start with little decisions and work up, but keep making decisions to move yourself forward.
Of course. And maybe one of your goals or one of those decisions is, I really want alimony or spousal support out of this. Is there anything that you can do that is beneficial towards getting you to that goal? Like, is it beneficial for me to file first? Or what are some elements of getting alimony or spousal support?
Well, once you've met with your attorney, we've got to evaluate your particular facts and circumstances with the law. I'm not going to say one way or another that filing first in and of itself gives you an advantage on alimony and spousal support. But if he is not supporting you now and he's moved out, y'all separated, you've waited too long and you need to file like yesterday. Because that's one where you wait and now he's gone, and it's going to take 2 months to get in front of a judge on this issue if we're just filing for divorce, if we are, very lucky in getting ahead of the ball. So these are one of those things when they say, I'm just going to wait. Okay. And then I've told clients for years that don't come back and tell me I'm right. Oh, Heather, you were right. He did that. I know I'm right. I do. It's not my ego. I just know men and women, humans, follow patterns. Particularly, like, I have the benefit of only practicing family law for, I can't even count the years now, but I think it's about over 20. And so the patterns repeat. Humans repeat the same patterns, and they're going to do that. So if we tell you, you need to get on the ball and file before it becomes dire that he's moved out and changed all the bank accounts, listen, because if we're wrong, we overreact. That didn't hurt you any, right? You still paid the light bill, still have gas money and groceries. But when we're right, that's you that's really struggling in a way that, was it preventable? I don't know. But we could have helped you not be so blindsided in that. And that's the worst thing to feel, because the divorce is a lot. You're dealing with a lot of emotions, a lot of all these legal terms that you don't understand. Your attorney's telling you, okay, we're going to get you this stuff, but it just might take time. It feels like 100 years, So that's where, yes, filing first and being proactive means you're not reacting, and particularly reacting to bad behavior and somebody who's acting out. And it's generally, I can predict that, as can the other attorneys. They tell you, and then we're like, okay, this is the way this may go, based on kind of trends and personality traits that we hear.
Yes. And I think those patterns and those predictabilities that's why we're doing what we're doing, right? That's exactly why you you have chosen to represent women. Like, hey, we recognize these patterns about how they're being treated. So let's change it, right? And I have one last question for you before we go. And we've seen this many times at our firm. A client gives us everything that we need as soon as we ask for it. They're on the ball, they're with it, they're feeling the sense of urgency. And we have minimal revisions to the divorce papers, and they have to wait the full period for the opposing party to respond. How do you recommend clients occupy this downtime, or really any downtime, when you're filing different things? Like, what are they supposed to do with themselves?
Well, find a hobby is a good thing, for sure. And journaling is very cathartic as well as can be productive. And many, we have a guided journal that we give to clients, and some of the attorneys here, they say they require it. And you probably don't want to cross them if they've told you to do it. But it allows you an outlet to process. And, it was one of our episodes, Olivia, and I know you'll remember if it was Megan Hunter, I can't remember. But anyway, the process of writing down, particularly when you're having a lot of high emotions, by writing it down, you almost release the power it has on you and can then think rationally once it's been written down, rather than it, spinning and stirring in your head. And I can speak from experience. You don't have to be going through a divorce to sometimes just have things going, spinning in your head. So that's a very helpful tool. That's just going to help you long term. And just start. Keep it somewhere, please, like safe. This isn't something you want anybody else to find, but it's really a benefit. And during this downtime, when you have questions and fears and concerns, write them down. Not in an email, write them down and give yourself pause to think about, who is this question best for? And I just say, we're going to answer as many questions of yours as we can, but are we the best person to answer every one of those questions? I can't tell most often we have a lot of questions that aren't legal questions. We have a ton of legal questions, but this is like a practice for yourself. You're going through this huge transition. Being able to get this stuff out in paper can be cathartic and helpful and make you feel like, okay, I am accomplishing something. And frankly, if you really want to, and this might not be the right time to be thinking like, oh, you want to be a resource for others because you're feeling really down and overwhelmed. But by writing your feelings, your experiences down for yourself, you may find that later that really helps somebody else. And what I would pretty much submit is that 12 months later, if you go back and look at that, you're going to be a different person who's grown, and that hopefully will give you a sense of accomplishment and pride.
Of course. And I think just organizing your thoughts is really helpful as well.
For any of our listeners who would love a copy of our guided journal, we are going to put a link in the show notes for where you can purchase one or contact us to have one mailed to you for free. And we really appreciate our listeners today. And Olivia, thank you so much. This was very helpful, and I appreciate you taking the time to find out questions that our listeners and Facebook group participants, we're looking to have answered.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And if you or someone is going through a divorce or is thinking about a divorce, of course, reach out to us at FloridaWomen'sLawGroup.com and join the conversation on our Facebook group, Women Winning Divorce. The link will be below in the episode description. And as always, we really appreciate our listeners. And if you're enjoying this episode, if you would leave us a 5-star review, we would greatly appreciate it. Thank you for listening.
From being served to preparing for trial, Divorce 101 will prepare you end to end for the divorce process. I'm Heather Quick, attorney and CEO of Florida Women's Law Group. Join us over the next 6 weeks to feel empowered and educated about a complex and often challenging legal process. Our online course is designed to provide an overview
of what to expect, what to prepare for, and offer guidance you may need to succeed and win at life. Over 6 weeks of video and additional resources, we are confident that you will finish our course feeling inspired and educated. Find out more at floridawomensLawGroup.com/divorce-101 or call us at 904-567-0121.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of Women Winning Divorce. My goal is to elevate your life and the way you are thinking so that you are best equipped to win at life. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe so you automatically get my new shows every week. And I would love to hear from you personally. Come join the conversation on social and join our Facebook group, Women Winning Divorce. We welcome your comments and suggestions. We want to bring you content that helps move your life forward. Women Winning Divorce is the place for an elevated conversation on how women can thrive during times of adversity in order to live their best life.